Okay, so Dr. Hodson, the first question that's come from our families at Mummy Star is related to lifestyle and diet choices around the menopause, either going into or post-menopause. And a summary of the questions that we've been asked are around whether there's any particular foods or supplements that can be eaten or taken to help with some of the symptoms, whether there may be any specific exercises around joint and muscle ache, and whether there's anything that people should be doing potentially either when they're receiving any sort of post-menopausal treatment, infusions, or the actual sort of treatment that they may be on in terms of the hormonal therapies.
Okay, so I mean, we would say for any woman through the perimenopause, menopause, it's a really good time to take a stock check, particularly in regard to heart health and bone health. So the diet and lifestyle recommendations are sort of across the board, really. And I think it's very much, I mean, it depends on treatment. These are ideals, and it's sort of do what you can. What we're really looking at in regard to diet, you actually can get quite insulin resistant through the menopause. So you don't process carbohydrates as well. And you can also get, many women start to put on weight around the middle and around their thighs when they hadn't done. So just to explain the mechanism behind that, because I think it can be, that in itself can be quite distressing. So the menopause basically is your ovaries are they're not releasing as many eggs. So you haven't got the ovarian estrogen. What your body will do as a result of that is it can get another form of estrogen from fat cells. So we very often find that women get a lot of sugar cravings when they haven't had these before, and they can be quite intense. And as I say, they can be quite strong. So I've had people that have said, I'm driving around petrol stations trying to get jelly tots at 10 o'clock at night. What's happened to me? And it's because your body is trying to lay down fat to get another weaker form of estrogen. It doesn't work very well, so it doesn't replace the ovarian estrogen. So what we're trying to do, again, if we're looking at, so for women, and many women can have body identical HRT, for all women, whether they are on HRT or aren't on HRT, what we're really trying to do is try and clear processed foods. So it's trying to cut as many hidden sugars as possible. Again, they can affect symptoms, they can disrupt your sleep. So it's really trying to go back to very, very sort of clean living, of cooking from scratch, and trying, again, there are some nutritional therapists that write a lot about this, so I'll post a link to them. We want, again, with diet, there's lots and lots of research at the moment going into good gut flora, and we know that it's really important for things like mood, for sleep, for energy. And with that, there's a phrase called eating the rainbow. And it's trying to get as many different colours of fruit and vegetable into your diet as possible. Ideally, you're looking at sort of 30 different fruits and vegetables over the month. And you're really trying to mix it up, because I always sort of say that gut flora is a little bit like toddlers. They get bored very easily and they want new things and exciting things to keep them awake. So it's trying to mix it all up. We've got a good fiber content in there, and we know again that can help with melatonin, which can help with sleep, and there's a lot of research showing that it can help with mood. So again, we're trying to cut processed sugars as much as possible, and again, you can find that, and there's a brilliant nutritional therapist who's done some work recently on how addressing your diet can also help with anxiety, which can be a really key symptom of the menopause. So you're really trying to get this sort of sugar level very, very level and not have the peaks and troughs. And that can be hard, but there's lots of expert advice out there to try and do that. We often see women that need more protein in their diet, particularly around the menopause, because you don't process it in the same way. And again, it's just trying to add little bits of protein to every meal. So for example, if you have porridge for breakfast, you can add some ground almonds in there. It's just trying to make it as easy as possible, but just, as I say, trying to get a little bit of protein in. We're also trying to stop insulin spikes again. So it's, again, if you're trying to avoid the snacking, it's sticking to the 3 meals. And most of it is to keep these sugars very, very, very steady. The other thing that we look at, again, for heart health, again, sort of cutting the sugars, and we want healthy fats in there. So the good quality olive oils, things like avocados, like nuts. And again, for bones, there's a really useful little tool. It's an online tool called the Edinburgh University Calcium Calculator. And you can go online and it has lots of different foods and dairy, and you can put them all in. And at the bottom, it will tell you whether you're having adequate calcium intake. So the other really important thing around the menopause, and again, often easier said than done, is trying to reduce toxins. So we know that menopause and alcohol really are not very good friends at all. Many women will find that they become much more intolerant to alcohol, and that's due to the different composition of body fluid. So you can't break it down as easily, and it can exacerbate a huge array of menopausal symptoms, including disrupted sleep, sweats, anxiety. And again, there is some expert advice out there, and I will link you to it, on how to sort of gradually reduce alcohol, because it can make a huge difference to symptoms. It also has an effect, so alcohol has an effect on heart health and bone health. So I would say that's one of the key areas, and it's easier said than done, but there are, again, lots of advice out there on how to reduce. Other toxins, so again, smoking, would really encourage cutting that because of bone health again. And then even things like caffeine can have a huge effect on bladder function and sleep. So it's with all of these, it's doing it sort of step by step. And I often say, choose 3 things that you can do each day for your health and well-being, whether that's going from caffeine to decaf. Can you gradually cut that down? It's little steps, and then gradually they start to build and you can start to change. And I know, as I say, if you're feeling rotten, this is very much, it can be hard, but it can make a huge, huge difference to quality of life and future health. In regard to supplements, again, with good nutrition, you should be getting most of the sort of micronutrients, macronutrients from your diet. It can be worth seeing a nutritional therapist who will have a look at your diet and see whether they're, again, they would often add suggestions to change it with food, but sometimes they will suggest supplements that can come alongside. So there are a few sort of core ones that we often find help people. We would recommend that everyone in the UK should be taking vitamin D, particularly during the autumn and winter months, because we just don't get enough sunshine, although thankfully it stopped raining here today, about the first time in a week. Magnesium can often help with things like anxiety and sleep. And then if women aren't having, so generally recommend 3 portions of oily fish per week. And if like me, you're never going to stomach 3 portions of sardines per week, a good quality fish oil can be helpful. There's again, in terms, there's a really good book by a neuroscientist called Lisa Mosconi called Brain Food. And I think if women wanted to delve into this further, that's a very good read about sort of the different quality foods that can help protect brain health. And that will also apply to bone health and heart health alongside. I think, again, with the supplements, it's partly sort of don't go wild with them. We should be aiming to get most of these things through nutrition. Okay. Oh, you're on mute. Pete, you're on mute.
Thank you very much for that, Zoe. That's great. Okay.
Oh, I forgot just in terms of, sorry, I didn't do the exercise.
It's okay. Go on.
There was a lady who asked about bisphosphonate infusions. It's not my area of expertise, but generally it's advised that you make sure that your vitamin D has been checked beforehand, and I would hope that they would be doing that, and that you take paracetamol beforehand to try and stop the reaction. In terms of, so I've got the questions down here. So in terms of things like joint pains, there's again, there's a lovely Pilates instructor on Instagram who gives lots of advice about this, because it can be really common during the menopause. And what we're looking at is a combination of aerobic exercise and then things like yoga and Pilates, just getting those stretches in before you go to bed. And they are incredibly beneficial during the menopause for anxiety and something called grounding. So one of the key things that happens during the menopause is when your your estrogen should buffer something called your sympathetic nervous system. And your sympathetic nervous system is your threat system, your fight-flight system. What happens when the estrogen is dropping down is it doesn't buffer that. And this is where a lot of the anxiety comes from. It's a very physical anxiety. We get women that say, I'm sort of jolted out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, my heart's racing, and I don't know why. And this is because the sympathetic nervous system is just being activated over and over again. And things like, we want lots of things that will activate the parasympathetic nervous system and just try and get that. Menopause is all about balance, and it's trying to bring that balance back down again. So as well as being really good for keeping sort of ligaments nice and stretched, yoga and Pilates, if you find the right types, and again, there are specific menopause yoga instructors who are very aware of all of this, it can start to activate the parasympathetic nervous system and really start to ground back down again and bring some relief from the anxiety. So again, there's a lady called Liz O'Riordan, who is a breast surgeon who's had breast cancer, and she does a lot of quite intense weight training. And she writes a lot about sort of joint pains and things, splints that can be worn to help some of them. So again, she's very much worth a follow, but I think it doesn't have to be long, but I think trying to get a series of little stretches for your sort of key achy bits, and then trying to do them just before you go to bed, and possibly if you have time when you get up in the morning, you can get a little routine together quite quickly that doesn't impact hugely on the day. And again, can just do that nice sort of grounding before you go to bed.
Thank you.